Good morning. My name's Matt. I'm one of the pastors of City Reform. We welcome our young people for Children's Church. Leaders will be meeting them and bringing them back and helping them to prepare for fuller participation here in the near future. We're continuing in our sermon series in the book of Philippians, and we're reading a section today that seems incredibly practical. It is, but beneath it, or maybe above it, we might say, it is richly theological. The passage points us to some really deep and profound spiritual truths. So maybe where we least expect it, we'll see exciting glimpses of God's glory. I'll read the passage, and together we'll affirm this is God's word. Philippians chapter 2, verses 19 through 30. I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, so that I may be cheered by news of you. For I have no one like him, who will be genuinely concerned for your welfare. For they all seek their own interest, not those of Jesus Christ. But you know Timothy's proven worth, how as a son with a father he has served me in the gospel. I hope, therefore, to send him just as soon as I see how it will go with me. And I trust in the Lord that shortly I myself will come also. I have thought it necessary to send to you Epaphroditus, my brother and fellow worker and fellow soldier, and your messenger and minister to my need. For he has been longing for you all and has been distressed because you heard that he was ill. Indeed, he was ill, near to death. But God had mercy on him, and not only upon him, but on me also, lest I should have sorrow upon sorrow. I am the more eager to send him, therefore, that you may rejoice at seeing him again, and that I may be less anxious. So receive him in the Lord with all joy, and honor such men, for he nearly died for the work of Christ, risking his life to complete what was lacking in your service to me. This is the word of the Lord.
Thank you, God.
Well, as I said, it's in some ways it feels a little bit like the part of the letter we're tempted to skip over. There's been some really rich theological expression in the book of Philippians. Paul has been urging them to live together in joyful unity, and this requires humility, and he has shown them that modeling their life after Jesus and drawing spiritual energy from Jesus is the means that they can love and support each other. Some really rich, deep theological reflections, and last week we tried to probe even deeper into the theology of Jesus who came to be among us and now is exalted with the name above every name. Now, on the heels of that, we may come to this passage and think, this is just housekeeping. And it's actually a good window into what the letter is about. Just as a quick reminder, the book of Philippians is a letter that the Apostle Paul sent to the church in Philippi while he was in prison. And the situation, we actually have really good insight into a situation from this passage, is that Paul had been supported by the Philippians in his ministry. He was going out into the world, bringing the gospel to other people, but this cost money. He needed resources. He had to buy boat tickets and train tickets, and he needed to eat, and so they had supported him. But now in prison, he needs their support all the more. The prison in the ancient world is not like prison today, or at least in our country. You get a nice striped jumpsuit, a little exercise in the yard, and 3 square meals a day. If you were going to eat anything but the barest of provisions, you needed support. And so the Philippians, somewhere along the way, had sent Epaphroditus to Paul, and we see that they had provided a service for him. They were supporting him. We know from the letter they had given a gift. Essentially, they were supporting Paul in prison. Is part of it. And this might be his house arrest that we see at the end of the book of Acts. It kind of fits with it, but we don't know for sure. However, along the way, Epaphroditus got sick. It wasn't easy to travel in the ancient world. Not easy to travel today, but particularly hard. They were going long distances. If they were going from Philippi to Rome, that's a they got to go from one peninsula to the other across Europe. And in the process, the guy they sent, their messenger, Epaphroditus, got sick. He got so sick that Paul said he thought he might die. We grieved Paul, and apparently the Philippians found out about it, and they were distressed, and Epaphroditus is worried that they're worrying about him, and so now Paul is sending Epaphroditus back to them. Presumably Epaphroditus is taking the letter. So Epaphroditus has gotten better. He was spared. They're celebrating. He's thankful. He's going back, and Paul says, "My hope is to send a messenger of my own, my right-hand man, Timothy. I need him right now. He's helping Paul. Maybe he's, perhaps writing some of the letters or just helping Paul in prison. It's not easy. But he says, I need him. As soon as I can spare him, I will send him to you. And I hope that when this situation gets resolved, I can go myself." So that's what's happening here. Again, kind of basic. However, what I would like to argue is this is an incredibly powerful window into the realities of ministry. And if we look just a little further, dig just a little deeper, it is a powerful window into some pretty deep theology. So, buckle up. We're going to go forward. We're going to see those two things. What do we learn about ministry? What do we learn about God? And I think it's the case that sometimes profound truth is discovered when we least expect it. Life can be like this. Some of us have been talking about the northern lights recently, the aurora borealis. I have not been able to see it, but I did see an extraordinary example of the northern lights probably 21, 22 years ago. We were living in Boston when I least expected it. It was extraordinary. I was walking off campus, living in the North Shore of Boston. I'd gone down to a field, stretching my legs, catching my breath in the evening, and I came across a field, and as I turned the corner and the trees parted, I looked up, and I thought for a moment it was the end of the world. The lights, the colors of lights were just streaming down from the heavens. I'd never seen it before. We weren't like always online back in those days, so I didn't even know this was about to happen. But it was a breathtaking moment. I'll remember the rest of my life. When I least expected it, I got a glimpse of something extraordinary. So I'm not promising the aurora borealis, but perhaps here in the midst of a somewhat mundane passage, we'll catch a glimpse of the glory of God. I certainly did as I meditated on it this week. So again, first thing, what did we learn about ministry? Very practical stuff. Make a couple observations. The first is, for the Apostle Paul, relationships are important. It's something that bears repeating, though we say it often. This is a major theme of the Bible and the New Testament. We are told that humans are made for relationship with God and with each other, but in our rebellion, that's been broken. So we have fractured relationship. We are alienated from God, and our relationship with other people is fractured. And yet in the gospel, God is calling us back to himself, and he's calling us into his family, into relationships with other people. And just notice for a moment what a big part of the passage relates to the relational significance of everything that's going on. And notice some of the language that Paul uses. He's thinking about relationships here. He talks about being cheered by news of you. He talks about Timothy being genuinely concerned. He talks about their longing for each other. He talks about how they were distressed because of something hard, the sickness of Epaphroditus. He talked about, when he reflected on Epaphroditus being sick, he talked about the potential for, quote, sorrow upon sorrow. He's eager to send, and he desires that Epaphroditus would be received with joy and that he would be honored. Now, I wonder if that's how we think of the Apostle Paul in the abstract. If you were to sit around and say, I wonder what the Apostle Paul is doing today, the answer might be he's writing the Bible. And in the midst of it, he is pondering deep and rich theology that leads him to say things like, how can we even begin to imagine the greatness of God? Oh, the riches of the glory and the splendor and the majesty of God. I mean, his vision of the greatness of God is extraordinary. And there are many times where following the logic of Paul's theology pushes us to the edge of what we can understand. He is a deep theologian. And so we might imagine that's what Paul spends his time in rooms thinking deep thoughts. But that's really not the picture we have at all, is it? When Paul describes himself as someone who is emotionally connected to his relationships and the ministry, he cares about people. And he assumes that this is important. In fact, a significant amount of time here is spent talking about how to cultivate relationships and be together. That's what he's doing. He's sending people. I want them to be with you. I want to be with you. The Apostle Paul not only understands that relationships are important, but being physically present is an important part of relationships. That's really, if you boil it down, that's kind of what's going on in this passage. It's important to be with people. And that, again, is an important reminder in an age where so much of our life can be virtual, and the expansion of AI makes it really unclear what is actually even real. In an age of epidemic loneliness and isolation, when our very human identity seems more fluid and abstract than ever before, human relationships are meant to be real and present and embodied. We want to remind ourselves of that. That's one of the big things we offer as a church. I think one of the most countercultural things we do is simply saying we're going to be together. It's a little act, or plant our flag of rebellion. We're going to be together. Not easy to do. Wasn't easy this morning. We had to move to the gym, set up chairs. People were here early. It's going to take some work afterwards. Last night we had a big meal together. It was wonderful celebration. I realized afterwards I did far less work than most people, and many people, but it was a 6-hour evening. Set up, tear down, and all the things that are going on. And for some of us, it was days and days and days. Amanda and Nate Moore put so much into it. But it was worth it, wasn't it? To eat together, to be together. It's important to do. Some of you in the coming weeks are going to travel significant distances or pay more money than normal to get on a plane to be with someone over the holidays. It's important. We could sort of Zoom together and each eat our, cranberry sauce out of a can, and yet we understand there's something inherent about being together. This is a biblical idea. We glance forward and think for a moment about this central part of the Bible where God himself came and took on human flesh and lived among us. The incarnation is God saying it's important, relationships are important, being present is important, it's necessary. Now, of course, there's more than that, but there's not less. So this is a big deal here in the passage, but it moves us to the bigger deal, which is this idea of sending. There are 4 times in the passage that the word send is used, twice of Timothy, twice of Epaphroditus. And beneath it all is the reminder that Paul himself has been sent by the Philippians. He's essentially writing what we might call a support letter, saying, thank you for your help. You've made it possible for me to go. Which is an interesting twist on it, because you might say, if you didn't think about it much, you might say, well, Paul seems to really like the Philippians. Why didn't he just stay there? Yeah, he could have stayed in Philippi. They had great friends, right? Even the jailer of the town was his friends. The magistrates had honored him. You might remember Acts chapter 16. Exciting beginning of a ministry. Maybe Paul would say, this is a great place for me to put down roots. But Paul understands he has a mission that requires going and sending. That the lordship of Jesus is above every family on earth, every tribe and tongue and nation. And God now is calling people from every place to know him, to come to saving relationship through the Lord Jesus. And in order for that to happen, people have to go and share the gospel. And so the very thing that is valued, the relationships, are disrupted by the calling of the ministry, which is to go, and through that going, others are invited in. In other words, to expand the kingdom and invite others into relationship, it requires a measure of sacrifice. It was a great sacrifice for Paul. In fact, when he describes his ministry, he sometimes just lists one hardship after another. For the joy of seeing others come into the kingdom, he goes. Faces prison, beatings, shipwrecks. The church in Philippi was formed because Paul faithfully proclaimed the gospel, and in the process of his ministry, he was beaten and put in prison. And God revealed his glory in that place. It's hard. Really hard things. It was hard for Epaphroditus. Paul says he risked his life for the work of Christ. And it cost money. Paul needed money, not only because he was in jail, but because he was traveling. He depended on the support of churches to go. The advance of the kingdom depends on people sending and people going. We want to remind ourselves of that quickly, because it is our calling as followers of Jesus that we would participate in his mission of making Jesus known to the ends of the earth, both in Pittsburgh and beyond. And in order to do that, we have to go and send. We have to sacrifice time, money, and risk relationships to do it. In the last couple of years, we've sent families out from our church to go to be witness for Jesus in parts of the world where it's not legal to be publicly doing evangelism. It's a difficult call. There's no visible public church of people in those countries. Westerners can be Christians, but it's a hard ministry and a hard calling and a hard thing to do. But it's necessary. We're going to be faithful to what Jesus wants from us. And there are those moments where people go out and we say, you might say, this was really fun thinking about in theory, but now you're going, we're not going to see you. We've experienced that in other ways as well. We send people out to do things in ministry. We not only send them overseas, but we send them into different parts of our city, crossing barriers and boundaries, to bring Jesus to a place where he can be known. We support with our time and money and prayers people that go to do ministry on campuses throughout our city. Gavin and Abby and Callie are connected with the ministry of RUF at Pitt. We make